Hey Star Trek fans, this is Jim Morehouse, and tonight's episode of Trek Ranks is a little bit different. We recorded it live at STLV 2018. So originally I thought I would maybe edit this down and clean it up when we were going to record, but instead I'm just putting the whole thing up, all the craziness, all the surprise guests, both in person and via a special 5 words and a hashtag that one of our guests unveils on us. Oh, and I was going to drop in the Defiant Torpedoes, like I mentioned every week on the show, but it got a little too crazy, so we have a Defiant Torpedo substitute. I think you'll pick up on it. And yeah, it's the same general structure of our regular show, so I think you'll like it. And here we go. Thanks for listening, guys. I really appreciate it. Live long and prosper.
Priority 1 message from Starfleet coming in on secured channel.
You are listening to the TrekRanks Podcast, a member of the Tricorder Transmissions Podcast Network. This is episode 36, featuring the Trek Mount Rushmore. Welcome, Star Trek fans. I am Jim Morehouse, and I am the host of the TrekRanks Podcast. And tonight, we have a first. It's a TrekRanks Roundtable being recorded live at STLV. We have an awesome room full of Trekkies here, and an awesome topic tonight, as we're going to each be firing up our phaser drills to carve into our own Trek Mount Rushmore. We're going to put that into Mount Selaya, Mount McKinley, whatever mountain you want to put that into. We're all building our own Trek Mount Rushmore. So let's get right to it. In the room with me tonight are 3 previous Trek Ranks hosts and 3 awesome Trekkies. We have Claire Little, Adam Drozen, and Alexander Perry. They're all here on Trek Ranks. And also in the room is Josh Duffy, who's not making picks tonight, but will be part of the observation deck, as it were, this evening. So, we are going to get into this. Welcome to the show, guys. Are you having fun at STLV?
Yes.
I'm having a lot of fun, but I still think the name of this episode should have been Mount Rushmore.
Yes, that would have been a very confusing episode title. Adam, welcome to Las Vegas, buddy.
Hey, hi, hello.
It's good to have you here.
So good to be here.
We are only halfway through STLV, and it's been one of the best conventions ever. That's what I'm going to say. All right, so we're going to jump very quickly into our diagnostic cycle to define, or what did you want to call the episode?
Mount Rushmore.
Yeah, we're not going to that. We're going to define our Trek Mount Rushmore parameters, and then we'll jump into the Prime Directive.
Diagnostic cycle will be complete in 20 seconds.
So for this diagnostic cycle, I'm just going to quickly define the parameters of our selection, just to get everyone's, so everyone knows how we're going to break this down. And first off, we are not including Gene Roddenberry as a selection, because, I mean, he is basically the mountain. Without Gene Roddenberry, there is no Trek. So don't think it's, we're gonna open up that spot for somebody else to get some recognition. And then second, this is only for creatives, so we're not going to do any on-camera talent. Now, if you want to include Jonathan Frakes, because of his amazing directorial record in Trek, that is certainly a great pick, but his status is Commander Riker, not eligible, so it's only going to be for the off-camera creators. And then finally, we're picking 5 people to be on our Trek Mount Rushmores. Little known fact, if you heard our last episode, in the 23rd century, a 5th person is actually added to Mount Rushmore. At least she was in the script of Star Trek V, The Final Frontier. And there was an unfinished matte painting that was created. The scene was never shot, but there was reference, and that 5th person was purported to be an African-American woman president of the United States named Sarah Susan Eckert. So now you know. That's our diagnostic cycle. We're going straight into our Prime Directives.
I do not concur with your captain's decision.
She's following our Prime Directive.
Define Prime Directive.
So, everyone, for your Prime Directives, how did you narrow down your lists and define your Trek Mount Rushmore picks? Claire, let's start with you.
I tried to go with people who made an indelible impact in Star Trek, not just for Trekkies, but for people who are not Trek fans, but who have sort of passing pop culture knowledge of Star Trek. And I tried to pick some people that no one ever talks about.
Okay, so you're digging deep to highlight some people. Okay, yeah. I like that. Adam, how about you, brother?
Mine is very focused on the years following 1987. I think that era of Trek just sort of all started falling into place with those creatives, and I sort of wanted to be like, oh, this is going to be the Trekmore, the Treshmanks for that era.
Thank you for your correct usage.
Perfect. Perfect. I can't even say it. Trekmanks? I still can't say it. Hi, Alex.
Mine ended up being kind of similar. It was mostly post-1987, and I tried to pick somebody from as many different sort of departments of the show as I could to ensure there was broad representation. It's not all writers or all directors or all production people. That I tried to pick one from kind of as each of the departments.
Okay, I did that as well. I tried to spread it around with different departments. And then I also tried to make sure that they touched at least 2 incarnations of Trek, so they weren't just involved in just one series. So for me, no spoilers, but that eliminates somebody like Gene Kuhn or Matt Jeffries or even like J.J. Abrams later on. And then I also was using quantity as a big factor for me. So I wanted them to have a real massive footprint on Trek. So they had to be involved in a lot of quality and quantity in terms of their output. So, all right, let's get into the order of things. Third Ramadaclon, fire us up. We're running through this thing.
I am a Jem'Hadar. He is a Vorta. It is the order of things.
All right, and just a quick reminder on how we're going to go through the order of things. First, each of us will reveal our original TrekRanks 5 words and a hashtag summary to tease our pick. Then we'll reveal our Trek luminary being carved into our own personal Mount Selaya. And as we do on TrekRanks, we're going to try to highlight one episode where we can that really defines the work of our the person we're picking. And at the end, if we have a few secondary system selections for any potential picks that may have just missed our list, we'll rattle those off. And tonight, as always, if we have any duplicates, you want to listen for the Defiant Torpedoes. Pew, 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 pew! Rub that in later. Okay, Claire, let's start with you. What's your number 5 pick for your Trek Mount Rushmore?
Okay, well, my 5 words are Shakespeare in the original Klingon, hashtag tapach tapbe. So I'm going with Mark Okrand, creator of the Klingon language.
Wow! Wow! Okay.
Because, I don't know about you guys, but every time I've told someone that I'm into Star Trek, one of the first things they ask is, do you speak Klingon? Or they assume I speak Klingon. Or they say something about the Klingon language. And so I think that is, he's made a big impact on the way Star Trek is perceived by the culture at large. And also, of course, with Discovery, the language has become more and more front and center to storytelling.
I am blown away by this pick. I love it. And that your Klingon was perfect right there.
Thank you.
Can you please say it again?
Tapach tapbe.
Klingon Mahtajan.
Yes.
All right, that's fantastic. Anybody else with a comment on Mark Okrand?
Since it's not a deep cut, it's a deep chisel.
He's actually not all that. I got 2 more that.
Wow.
Oh, you chisel even deeper.
Yeah, like drills down, core samples.
Stunning pick. I love it. I never would have ever considered him. That is a brilliant.
He's the first person
pick.
I thought of.
Yeah, but the point you make is so valid, which is that when you say you're a Star Trek fan, that is always one of the first questions you get asked. I memorized the Klingon drinking song just as a way of pushing back against that particular question. The
Same.
one from Way of the Warrior.
Yes. Oh, I was thinking of the one from Birthright.
Oh yeah,
The more of the hunting song.
yeah. Agentage deja e. Agentage deja. Skrull mighty.
Definitely at STLV. All right, let's keep moving. Adam, who's the first person you're putting on your Trek Mount Rushmore?
5 words, keeper of the Roddenberry box, hashtag boss man. It's Rick Berman.
Rick Berman deserves to be
You
up
gotta
there.
get Rick Berman up there. Controversial figure, must be said.
Yes.
Some might say an executive first and a creative second, and those people might not be wrong, but still, I think essential and formative in developing the bulk of the Star Trek canon.
I am a Rick Berman apologist. Anyone who thinks it's controversial, sorry, you're wrong. It's real simple. Without Rick Berman, you don't have Trek at this core level. Alex?
We have our first TrekRanks duplicate. 5 words, Gene's successor keeps flame alive, hashtag underrated.
Fantastic. I love it. We have a duplicate already. Rick Berman is on the board twice. So, Alex, why did you pick him?
Because I feel like, there are, of the 800 episodes of Star Trek, about 600 of them have his fingerprints all over them.
Yep.
The style, a bunch of the conventions that the shows had to abide by, the flavor of it. He's been quoted as saying in the past that he didn't necessarily believe 100% in kind of Gene Roddenberry's vision or view of the future, but it wasn't his kind of place to violate that it was his role to be the keeper of the flame, so to speak, and I think he did that very well, and as much as he did get a ton of criticism over the years, you have to hand it to him. I mean, 4 shows got to where they were under his leadership, and that is a phenomenal effort.
Yeah, totally agree. And Adam, I love the way you sum it up, that some might say he's more of a executive than a creative. I don't think that's accurate, but he was definitely an executive.
He's a co-creator
he had to make hard
of
decisions.
Enterprise.
For sure, yeah. And he had to make hard decisions.
And co-creator of Voyager 2.
Yeah.
Yep.
Deep Space Nine, he was there for all
Deep
of it.
Space Nine, yeah, for all of it.
And I would say the episode I would give him credit for. Let's say, I mean, he's so many, but let's say Broken Bow, just because that's
That was
such
the one I picked too.
such a good pilot, and
Fantastic.
it's like he has sole screenwriting credit on it, and I feel like that's just like a great example of what a Berman episode is.
Yeah.
That's fantastic. I love it. Okay. All right, so my first person I'm going to start off with a little bit of a statement pick, because Trek is obviously known for its diversity and inclusion and all those things, but the harsh reality is that it's a product of its time, and 99% of that is white dudes, and so that's obviously going to be reflected, I think, in some of our picks tonight. So I decided early on I'm not going to have my Trek Mount Rushmore just be 5 white guys, and so I can't have Gene Kuhn or Matt Jeffries from TOS, but I want to have TOS represented. So I am going deep. My 5 words in a hashtag: thread from Babel to Discovery, hashtag logic. I'm sick to death of your logic. And my pick is DC Fontana, Dorothy Fontana. My episode is Journey to Babel, which from season 2 of TOS, number 17 of Trek Ranks, one of my favorites. And obviously, she's well known for her groundbreaking work on TOS, but she also worked on TNG, and she actually wrote an episode for Deep Space Nine, Dax. But the main reason I'm picking her is because she established so much so much of the Vulcan lore in Star Trek with Journey to Babel, introducing Sarek. And I'm going to say Yesteryear is actually a really quality episode. Everyone knows I'm not a huge animated series fan, but Yesteryear is a pinnacle, and there's so much in there that's layered out through other texts of other Treks. So I love her. She also co-wrote Encounter at Farpoint with Gene Roddenberry, and she's also credited with being the co-creator of the concept of the LCARS, the Library Computer Retrieval Access and Retrieval System. So she's groundbreaking creator. And I really just wanted to make sure we had a little bit more representation. Oh, a couple more episodes she wrote. Tomorrow was yesterday, The Ultimate Computer, The Enterprise Incident, so she's a legend. Claire.
She's also on my list.
Oh, duplicate, duplicate. Pew, 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 pew.
Yeah, she's so responsible for so much of what makes Spock, and what makes that mysterious Vulcan persona that drew people in, and that drew fans in, that, you know, not to say that people only wanted to save Star Trek because of Spock. That's not true. But I think, you know, if you look back at a lot of the early fan art, the fact that a lot of the early fans were women. I mean, Gene Roddenberry 100% knew what he was doing when he created Spock to be this mysterious kind of magnetic figure for the average female viewer. I mean, he was deliberately written that way and crafted that way, but DC Fontana is, in my opinion, responsible for sort of filling that in. You know, This Side of Paradise maybe gets kind of mocked a little bit, but I think it's, I mean, I
Who mocks This
don't
Side of
know.
Paradise?
I don't
I
think
love This
anyone
Side of Paradise.
should, personally, but I think as far as, you know, Journey to Babel does fill in so much for Spock and Sarek, but This Side of Paradise to me is the deep, like, tragic core of Spock. When you get to see,
yes.
I mean,
That's a good
and
point.
that was DC Fontana's work.
Yeah, that's a great point.
She knew exactly what was hidden inside Spock and was able to bring that out.
Well said. You guys, any comments on DC Dorothy Fontana?
I think she has a really underrated role in the creation of the Next Generation too. I mean, when you think about, when you hear about all of the different ideas for that show that were being thrown around and quite how wacky some of them were, you know, I think it's a credit to that original kind of team, which included DC Fontana and David Gerrold, who were hired early on in the creation of Next Generation, who really sort of set the tone for the rest of the show. Obviously, there was all kinds of, you know, creative challenges in association with the creation of Next Generation, and Dorothy didn't last too long beyond the season premiere, but by that point, you know, you have the guts of the shows in place, the characters are in place, the concepts in place. You don't have a conference table on the bridge like one of those original concept images showed, and you have sort of the core building blocks. And I think that is part of her legacy. That it's important to remember, because the Next Generation leads to Deep Space Nine, leads to Voyager, leads to Enterprise, leads to Discovery, and the true success of the franchise is in everything that came after.
Yeah, and DC Fontana was with the original series at its inception. I mean, she was working with Gene Roddenberry on The Lieutenant.
That's right.
So she has been a part of Star Trek since the very beginning. Even when her official title was just secretary, she was still doing a huge amount of creative work.
Yeah, totally agree. Okay, we are into round two. So, Adam, what's your who's the second person you're putting on your Trek Mount
Here we
Rushmore?
go. Tremendously talented Tar Heel transforms Trek. Hashtag an easy pillar to swallow. It's Michael Piller.
Michael Piller. Oh, single tear for Michael Piller.
Yeah, rest in peace, Michael
Rest in
Piller,
peace.
one of the legends. I think in the same way you could make a case that there wouldn't be Trek as it is without Berman. You know, it could have easily fizzled out after a couple, you know, iffy seasons, but I think Piller was the guy who came in and saw the pieces on a table and said, oh, this is what this show is and this is what it could be. And, you know, the whole next 15 years or so of the show was sort of unfolded from there. A legend, brilliant, genius. And that document, Fade In, his writing about the writing of Insurrection, that's his true gift to Star Trek. That's how you write Star Trek. Brilliant mind.
I love it. It's a fantastic pick.
He's also on my list.
Oh!
But I zeroed in on the fact that he's responsible for the open submission policy, which brought in so many writers who ended up becoming writers and producers on later Trek.
We have a visitor. Oh, it's Jordan Hoffman.
Oh my God!
Jordan Hoffman is joining us.
Look at this
in the midst-
outrageous room you got
Yes,
here.
we have a decorated Trek room.
What a surprise that of all the places they put you. Are you recording right now?
We are
He needs to
recording.
sit there because he's going to record.
Have a seat right
Sorry.
here, sir. And,
Oh, yeah.
Oh, okay.
We're halfway through.
All right.
You can
So
chime
good to
in.
see you.
So good to see you.
How are you? So good to see you. Give me a hug.
Hey.
This is our first ever TrekRanks Roundtable live recording.
Oh, Okay.
And we love.
I was just with
That
Dr.
Jordan
Erin.
Hoffman
She's
is
dying to meet you.
Oh, okay.
She's downstairs drinking.
We got to talk about Varric. Yeah, we're talking about Dragon Age on a Star Trek podcast. Deal with it.
Oh my God, Jordan
that-
Hoffman bringing chaos to Trek Ranks.
I apologize.
Chaos on the bridge.
I'm crossing the franchise streams.
It's
Is that
totally
okay?
allowable. What are you arguing about on this podcast?
No, it's no arguing. This is a podcast about all the reasons we love Star Trek.
Oh, yeah.
So everyone's just no wrong answer.
Okay, what's the question?
So we're doing Trek Mount Rushmore, and Claire just made her third pick now.
Well, it's because I had a duplicate.
Yeah, you're moving up,
It's with
so-
Michael Pillar. I promise you, the other
Michael
two will
Pillar.
not be duplicates.
Okay,
and if
so-
they are, that's impressive.
So here's the other thing about Michael Pillar. Was dealt such a bad hand coming onto the show.
Oh, yeah.
All the writers had left. Most of the executives had left. He was basically brought on to to kind of resurrect the show and make it work again. He was responsible for hiring a huge number of legends, now showrunners in their own right.
Well, and so many of them came directly out of the open submission policy. Ron Moore, Renee Echeverria, others.
Shankar.
Yeah. That hugely changed the shape and trajectory of Trek. And, Michael Pillar's actions ended up leading to the way Deep Space Nine looked and felt. And
Because he hired Ira Stephen Bear in the third season
Exactly.
of Next Generation. And the other thing about the challenge there was, they were basically behind from the moment they started making that season. And the fact that it ended up being as good as it did is a credit to them trying to pump out 26 episodes of television while always being behind the curve.
yeah.
Our Trek Ranks panel's dropping some Trek knowledge. Unbelievable. All right, so then where are we? We're moving to
Me.
Wait, so
Alex.
who's on Mount Rushmore already?
Well, we'll do a recap.
Oh, okay.
No, everyone-
Gene
so-
is off.
So
Gene is-
You can't pick
we're
Gene.
not picking Gene Roddenberry. Everyone's
Wow.
picking 5.
You know what? He would be like, if you go to Mount Rushmore and there's the crazy horse on top, that's him.
Yes.
He's the guy.
He's the
there.
mountain.
He's the mountain itself.
He's the core.
Is Stuart Baird on Mount Rushmore?
Stuart Baird is
He's not-
eligible to be picked.
The director of Nemesis?
If somebody wants to make an argument for him, we're glad to hear it.
Okay.
I would probably shut down Trek Ranks forever if that happened.
But I thought there were no wrong answers.
I do.
About the temperature.
That's the only wrong answer.
Oh, okay.
Yes, I
Yeah.
deterred the fan.
No, because we're heating it up here.
I know.
Trek Ranks.
Amazing.
I know.
Okay, we're about halfway through.
Okay.
So, Alex, who is your number
My
2
second pick.
face?
Actor turned director extraordinaire. #director school. I picked Jonathan Frakes.
Wow, so you did take Jonathan
He
Frakes.
directed
That's
17
fantastic.
episodes of Star Trek, 2 movies across 4 separate shows.
Yep.
And he's still
And he's still directing. The 14 includes his 2 on season 2 of Star Trek Discovery. I think he really paved the way for a lot of the other actors who went on to direct on the show. He was the first. Then you had others who now mostly cut their teeth as directors on television, right? People like Roxanne Dawson, Robbie McNeil,
Yep.
LeVar Burton for a while was mostly doing television directing. He really set that stage, and of all of the actors turned directors, the one that executives, the creative side and the cast side, the one who they've always spoken most highly of is Jonathan Frakes. And he did a great job with First Contact. That was his very first movie directing job ever. And it is, in my opinion, the best Star Trek movie.
Number 2 on Trek Ranks. Number 2 on Trek Ranks.
Did a phenomenal job with it, and I think as a result, and given that his longevity spans from 1987 to 2018, and continues to be engaged in the franchise and bring all this knowledge and know how to do both sides of it, that's why I felt like he had to be on my Mount Trush ranks.
Brilliant pick. And speaking of Stuart Baird, he could have saved Nemesis.
Yes.
If he had directed Nemesis, I'm telling you, it would be a good film. It would not be what it is. Trust me. The core is there, Jordan. The core of a good
You
story
think Nemesis
is there.
is better than Insurrection?
No, I
you
love
think-
Insurrection.
You think Insurrection is better than Nemesis?
He's got this thing from Insurrection right here.
Yes,
the
for
the
real.
kid has.
On our Star Trek prop table here at STLV, we have the little animal that Artem plays with in Insurrection.
Artem. Good.
By the way, he was on a panel here at STLV. Michael Welch, the actor.
that kid was on
That was
adult
Yeah,
now,
he was
but
like 25 and just had a kid. All right. Any other comments on Jonathan Frakes?
He's the man.
He's the best. No doubt. Okay, let's move on to my second face on my Mount Rushmore. My 5 words and a hashtag. Make the station look weird. Hashtag Tarok Nor. And it is Herman Zimmerman, art direction and production designer. The guy oversaw the art direction for early TNG, all the TNG movies, the later TOS films as well, all of Deep Space Nine, and all of Enterprise. The only thing he didn't touch was Voyager, which they were doing while he was working on other stuff. And, I mean, the iconic looks. I mean, he designed Deep Space Nine, and that spoke wheel imagery that it's so iconic and it's so connecting quickly to what it is. So, and he wrote the Star Trek Deep Space Nine technical manual, which is one of my favorite Trek reference books. So, Herman Zimmerman, the episode I picked was Broken Bow, because I actually love what he did with the Enterprise and those sets and the bridge. So, any comments on Herman Zimmerman?
He's good.
Yeah. I didn't pick him partially because I was pretty sure that someone else would pick him, and but I'm glad that anyone picked him, because he does deserve so much credit. He's
a legend.
Yeah.
The visual language of the show is such an important component
absolutely.
of it, and he is the person I think most responsible for a lot of that. I mean, not necessarily some of the bigger, more iconic things like the design of what the Enterprise D looks like, but when you're talking about the day-to-day, episode by episode, what the flavor of the show is, Herman Zimmerman is 100% in there and super important to what Star Trek is and became.
And I think Enterprise, his work on the NX-01, not just designing the ship, but also the interior, the sets, that sort of submarine appearance. It is, I mean, the ship is always critical to the show, but it feels extra critical to Enterprise for some reason to me.
And it also connects so well into TOS.
Yeah, it's a beautiful ship.
Always at TOS looks more advanced. People just sometimes don't get that. It's very frustrating. And I'll say the last thing I love about his task when designing Deep Space Nine, I love how they basically said, design something that when you see it, when you're sitting at the dinner table and you see it on TV, you know what the show is. And I love that, because it's such a unique look. So, okay, we're going into Adam's number 3 face on his Trek Mount Rushmore.
Okay, so here we go. The intern becomes the showrunner. Hashtag all hail the king of weird Trek. It's Brannon Braga.
Oh, I love it. We got 3 showrunners so far, and that is a fantastic pick.
Just got to go with the essentials here for a minute. Yeah, love this guy. Love all the weirdo episodes. I feel like it's the rags to riches story. Came as an intern, left as a creator, showrunner, and really defined, in a way, what the cerebral and sort of more conceptual aspects of Trek could be.
I love it. Do you have an episode?
I would say his episode, Emergence.
Well, think about it, because we're going to keep talking about it.
It's got to be Emergence.
Pew, 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 pew. Pew, pew. Morehouse has picked him as well, and so has Alex.
I semi-have. I cheated slightly.
Oh, you cheated slightly.
Yeah. So
we love cheating on TrekRanks.
Yes.
We love cheating.
So I slipped in an extra person by picking the writing duo of Brannon Braga and Ronald Moore.
Okay, dude, why don't you go through your 5 words?
So the episode I picked was All Good Things.
Okay.
My 5 words, Star Trek's top writing duo, hashtag including Generations, because I think Generations is underrated.
I think it's rated.
No wrong answers. Next, you're talking about Stuart Baird.
Yes. I think together the two of them represent in some ways the sort of yin and yang of different elements of the Star Trek franchise. On the one hand, you have Brannon Braga, who, as Adam was saying, was like king of weird Star Trek, sort of the out there, spacey, science fiction-y concepts. And on the other hand, you had Ron Moore, who was much more about the world building of the species, about the politics between them. And I think Star Trek is sort of that combination of the two. And they just together have in my opinion, two, again, really great outings. One being the series finale for Next Generation, All Good Things, and two, Star Trek First Contact, which, as I said before, was my favorite movie.
Yep, that's fantastic. What was your 5 words and a hashtag?
Pete gave them.
We did it.
Oh,
Star Trek Stop Writing Duo, hashtag including Generations.
Sorry, I missed that. I was doing my notes. There's too much going on in this crazy roundtable. That's a great...
Which just gives me another opportunity to plug the fact that Generations is an underrated movie and more people should love it.
I love it. I'm sorry I missed it. Here's my 5 words and a hashtag for Brandon Braga to close out the kind of pseudo-soup round here. Mental chaos, anomalies, and temporal loops. Hashtag wrote 109 episodes and 2 films. So the episode I picked was Cause and Effect because I just think it defines the way he sees just chaos. He makes order out of chaos. He just tells these amazing stories in unique ways, and I love them. Guy wrote, just going to rattle off a few. Frame of Mind, All Good Things, First Contact, Deadlock, Future's End, Scorpion, Timeless, Dark Frontier, Broken Bow, The Andorian Incident. The guy is a legend. 109 episodes.
And those are, how many of those were solo teleplay?
Not that many, actually.
Okay, but
a lot of those were Joe Menosky. And,
right. But he's the thread through all of it.
Yes.
And this guy's also been pretty busy since the end of pre-current Trek. I mean, he's always... did the Cosmos with McFarlane.
Yep.
He's got a bunch of other shows.
Yeah, he's doing the Orville. He was an EP on 2 series as well,
Salem.
and he created 709, which is one of my favorite characters.
I'll just go out on a limb here and say, you know what? The first 25 minutes of Threshold is a good episode.
Agreed.
I'm serious. Like, give me
Agreed.
some of that right stuff in space test pilots. Like, I want to see more of that. I mean, okay, the last...
It's
basically not good, but
when Tom Paris tears out his tongue is pretty much
That's the point where you should turn the episode off.
Were you here the year that he publicly apologized for Threshold?
I've heard him publicly apologize for Threshold and the series finale of Enterprise multiple times.
He hasn't stopped apologizing.
He doesn't need to apologize for anything. He's a legend.
Threshold came up at one of the panels that we did here just the other day. Were you were there, right, for the best space animals?
Yes.
And was it Spot the cat, Porthos the dog,
Chester should have made the list.
Livingston the jellyfish, or whatever kind of fish he was. And some people were arguing that the salamander babies from Threshold should be considered space animals, and I don't know whether I agree with that or not, but it did creep me out just thinking about somewhere out there in the galaxy, Janeway and Paris's kids are still abandoned and probably dead because they were one of a kind beings.
Yeah, they couldn't procreate. With
They couldn't procreate, but they also couldn't nurse from. They couldn't. Who the hell knows what they were? They were too
probably picked off by predators.
Yeah, they were dead 5 minutes after the closing credits.
That would have been that should have been the final scene.
Right.
The final scene should have been that.
Devil's advocate, they're now immortal space gods.
Okay.
Episode 36 of Trek Ranks, we're breaking down Threshold.
Yes.
I love it. And by the way, you have 2 people on your list who are responsible for Sub Rosa. Brandon Braga wrote it, and Jonathan Frakes directed
But Jim, everyone knows the only thing that makes something Star Trek is if there's a sex ghost in it. Sub Rosa is the only real episode of Star Trek that there is.
Sub Rosa's a hoot.
It's hilarious.
My beloved wife,
it's the worst.
Oddly enough, she loves original series, and everything after that she doesn't really much care for.
Unless there's a sex candle, and then she's like tuning in.
Well, but she got into Discovery because I was watching it a lot, so she just was there. But she was watching Sub Rosa, and she's like, "This is like Dark Shadows. I wish more were like this."
That's actually
It is kind of like Dark Shadows.
I've never heard that. That's really true. All right, let's get the cart back on the road. Claire, who is your number 4 person on your Trek Mount Selaya Rushmore?
I am going with Jim Wolvington And everybody's like, wait a minute, let me Google that real quick.
I have never heard of Jim Wolvington, and
he's the four-time Emmy-winning sound designer for the Next Generation, Deep Space Nine, and Voyager.
Wow.
He won,
sound designer.
He won 4 Emmys in a row for Next Generation, 87 to 90.
You would pick TNG and later sound design over TOS sound design.
I only had 5 picks, and let me just say, I've got an... No, wait. I'm saving my obscure original series pick for the next round.
Okay.
So but yeah, I did have to think about that.
Okay, no, I respect your opinion. I'm just wanting to learn more about you.
Yeah, I mean, all the beeps and boops, the chimes, the white noise rumble of the engines, the tricorder noises. Frankly, I've been hoping that someone's phone is going to ring during this recording because I guarantee it will be a sound that he is responsible for. I feel like the sonic atmosphere of the Next Generation, at least from growing up with it as a kid, is one of those, like, that doesn't... Okay. You can...
That's a TOS phaser.
Yeah.
I mean, sorry, TNG phaser.
No, I mean, like, as a kid, that's one of those things that, you hear it. It's like almost this, like, deep psychological Pavlovian Star Trek is somewhere kind of response.
And on Discovery, in that first episode, the Vulcan Hello, one of the first things that establish it as being Star Trek is when you pull through the view screen and you get the beeps and boops and bloops that are all from all those kind of recycled TOS, TNG sound effects.
Right. And of course, the original series pioneered having that kind of ambient technology noise. But again, what I grew up with was the work that Jim Wolvington done.
And I found that
Wolvington did, yeah.
And I found that Discovery actually, I felt like it took a little bit more from the TNG sort of sound pastiche than it did TOS in some places.
That might have been because the recent Kelvinverse did so much of the TOS. Again, the first thing you hear after the swell of music is a blue from that very TOS-y blue in 2009. Claire is right. Claire's pick is correct.
It's a great pick.
I'm not saying that it's better than TOS.
No, it's right. No, it's just right that sound design is the least appreciated thing in filmmaking in general, and it's so key to this show, particularly the show that we all loved and watched as kids, and let's be honest, sometimes stayed up too late watching and fell asleep during.
Right, and that ambient noise of the Enterprise, to me, it's very soothing. It'll put you to sleep. I'll let the menus, the DVD or Blu-ray menus, just run in the background if I'm not for hours on an end. But I don't mind hearing that ambient white noise loop.
It is a nice shot of Klonopin in oral form. It's really nice. So you're definitely right.
You can hear some of those sound designs at the opening and close of every TrekRanks episode. Adam, what do you got?
16 years expanding the scope. Hashtag lights, camera, Marvin. It's Marvin Rush.
Yes, we knew that was coming. Marvin Rush.
Of course, I had to nominate the greatest Star Trek television cinematographer of all time. Come on, what a legend. He's like, you look at Trek before and after him, TNG Trek, and it's like he's like ASMR inducing. Like once you hit that good, like, extremely bright, low contrast, pastel lighting, like my scalp is buzzing. Like, I'm just like, oh yeah, like it's so good. And I'll give a secondary system shout out to Jonathan West too, who was the guy who replaced him on TNG when he went to do Deep Space Nine, and then who replaced him on Deep Space Nine when Rush went to do Voyager. Those guys really did a lot with what I think is a very unstylish type of cinematography for television, and it's just very, again, like in the way that's audible Klonopin, this is visual Klonopin, and I think of the lighting they did with the Borg is really cool, and they're great. Marvin Rush is great, and now he's doing the Orville, which is great.
Yeah, but both those guys directed a few episodes too.
Yeah.
I mean, Marvin Rush is a legend, and he's my one day on set, he was one of my favorite parts about it because the guy was everywhere. He was hands-on, lighting and part of everything. And I always remember him because the whole day he was talking like Yoda. It's like this shtick thing where he's like, "Why did I put here? Yes."
He was literally talking
And
like Yoda.
yeah, literally like as a joke, like reversing.
Wow.
And you could tell everyone else on the set was just like,
He's doing that again.
"Okay, all right, Marvin."
To me, he forever gets credit for being the guy who figured out how to light the Enterprise D bridge without needing to put black paper over the aft stations on the bridge so that it wouldn't catch the reflective glare of the lights.
Yes.
What's cool was, did you guys go see when Fathom Events was showing some of the early
I
TNG
went to all
stuff
of
in
them.
theaters? Which they had to cancel it because of, you would know more than anybody, there was some kind of weird SAG rule.
Someone wanted money.
Someone wanted money.
Where's my residuals?
Right.
Canceled.
So they did like 3, maybe 4 of them, and I went to every one too. And the first one that I went to, it was just like a revelation to see that on the big screen, in good high def. It's cinematic stuff that we'd never seen in the theater before. It was so dynamite. Great cinematographer, but not the greatest. I would have picked, not that I've been asked to do anything, I'm interrupted. As I said in the text, it's the dude from TOS.
Oh, Jerry Finnerman.
Oh,
Yeah.
Finnerman, yeah.
That's the guy.
Thanks for spoiling my final.
Oh, wait.
Love it. Okay, hold on to that. Let's go to Alex's number 4
Okay,
face.
we're going to change direction entirely.
Okay.
5 words, underrated composer creates musical universe, hashtag across 4 series. My pick is composer Jay Chataway.
Wow, Jay
Who
Chataway.
composed, out of 800 episodes of Star Trek, Jay Chataway composed 183 scores for Star Trek episodes. He's not necessarily the guy you first think of, right? He's not Alexander Courage, he's not Jerry Goldsmith, but he was one of 2, the other being Dennis McCarthy, kind of mainstay go-to composers for the Star Trek franchise. The episode I picked, because it's one of my favorites that he scored, is Call to Arms from Deep Space Nine.
Awesome.
But Azati Prime he did Caretaker, except for the Voyager theme, which was Jerry Goldsmith. Just a really, when you were talking about visual clonopin, to me those Star Trek scores that just is like my mood music. I mean, that is the music that defines my entire life. And you hear much more of Jay Chataway and Dennis McCarthy than you do of Jerry Goldsmith when you're making your way through the franchise, and so that's why I picked him.
Well, let's do this, because I did not pick Jay Chataway, but I did pick a composer, so my number 4 face on my Mount Rushmore, and use this at 183, my 5 words and a hashtag, Star Trek's most prolific composer, hashtag from TNG to Enterprise, it is Dennis McCarthy, and I was really torn. I was going to pick a composer between McCarthy, Chataway, and of course Jerry Goldsmith. And my Prime Directive was quantity was a big factor for mine. And Dennis McCarthy, I mean, the episode I picked was for the uniform. Because there's this, I know you know it, the scene where the Defiance not at 100% and it's leaving, so they have to use some old technology and they're
engine
kinda
room,
doing
bridge,
everything manual. The score there, which I'm going to play on this episode right now. Is amazing. I just love that moment. I love everything he did. He also did Deep Space Nine theme, which is my favorite.
Star Trek
theme.
Generations.
He did Star Trek Generations, the film.
And that's a really nice one.
And he did 257 episodes of Star Trek. 257. So, I mean, basically a third. Yeah, the guy's a legend. He also did the closing theme for Star Trek Enterprise, which Archer's theme, which I obviously like because I close every episode of Trek Ranks with it.
It's a beautiful song. We sang it the other day. Here.
Archer's theme?
Yeah, when there was the Enterprise cosplay group.
Oh, right.
And as they were exiting, I started singing it myself. It's beautiful. And then I even did the guitar solo. That guy really shreds.
Yeah, it's very...
He really...
It's very like 90s, like Full House or something.
Oh, it is.
I love that though. Like that's my jam.
I was gonna add that his music sounds cinematic, like musical scores, but he also the TV trick of going in and out of scenes where you're like big action for 3 seconds and then you're back to dialogue, and the music has to kind of match that. He's really good at making that kind of seamless.
287 he did?
257.
It's amazing. I mean, the week in, week out. I mean, it's
incredible when you think about it. So, okay, let's move to our number one picks. Claire.
Okay,
let's do it.
Yeah, original series cinematographer Jerry Finnerman.
I agree.
My final pick. So, I mean, I assume a lot of people know this, but maybe they don't, given all the controversy surrounding Discovery as a way to get people to sign up for CBS All Access. But the original series was originally, in part, meant to sell color televisions to people, which is one reason why it is such a supremely colorful show. But the cinematographer, he had to light the sets for black and white television viewers and color television viewers, which I've seen very little black and white original series, to be completely honest, but I'm assuming that he was successful. But there's this like vivid minimalism to the way he lights the original series. It's extremely bright and colorful, but for me it never feels garish, and there are times when it really should. I mean, any other show lit with fuchsia and hot pink and just so many, and then with primary color uniforms standing in front of all these wacky colors, I don't feel like it should work at all, but it does, and I'm sure someone who knows way more about cinematography could tell me why. But it's magical the way it works, and the lights, the shadows. Go for it. School me out.
No, I mean you nailed it. Like he's really good. They were like,
we're done.
Well, he was shooting 35 millimeter,
yes,
and he came from features. I mean, I can't remember his credits off the top of my head, but he was the assistant to a god of cinematography. I forget who, but like somebody who made major movies, and he was actually in a little bit of a dip in his career. I think he had maybe a problem in life that had taken him out of the game for a while, and he was offered this position, and he took it and grabbed it and did so much to, I think vivid minimalism is a perfect way of describing it. And one of the best things about the relatively recent movie For the Love of Spock, which I saw in the theaters.
So did I.
Was seeing high-res TOS footage in a theater. It just pops off the screen. It's like a Van Gogh. It's just like, oh, the colors are so huge. And you're right, it sold color TVs, but like, yeah, the ring around the bridge, the bright red, and just all the primary colors are just beautiful.
And the atmospheres, whenever they're on some Planet of the Week planet set, you know, those sets.
Those are great.
They got recycled, you know, in some cases they may not be the most visually interesting or the most high quality sets, but for whatever reason, just throwing a gel or whatever over the light, so it's this green sky, this gradient of green or this gradient of pink. I don't know, it sells it.
And it's something that no other series has because it would then be considered low budget. I mean, TOS was not a low budget show for its time. It broke the bank and nearly destroyed Desilu, but now we would consider it low budget.
Right.
And it was, like that look is part of it just looks like a happy place.
Yeah.
You know, just that.
There's something that's simultaneously dated and timeless about the way that show is lit. I don't know that you could do that today.
I'm going to boil it down to layman dumb guy terms, which is my terms. Just was so cool when the light was on their eye. Yeah. So cool. Every scene. Okay, Adam, who is your number 5 Trek Mount Rushmore face?
classed up Trek for decades, #Maestro, It's Jerry Goldsmith.
Jerry Goldsmith, the composer round. I love it.
You gotta give it to.
I love that we got all three of them.
You gotta give it to a good Jew, as Jordan would attest. It's almost tough because in the way that like everyone else on my list is sort of defined by Trek, his career like is so beyond Trek. Like he's just a genius legend. In every way, I mean, he like iconic scores like Alien and Planet of the Apes, but like his Trek music is just so lush and brilliant and epic and cinematic and evocative that it just elevates everything, whether it's a full score or a 2-minute intro or a 90-second intro piece. Brilliant, just brilliant musical mind.
And he did, I mean, multiple movie scores. That
First Contact,
motion pictures, First Contact, Insurrection, and Nemesis. And he also did two television scores of Voyager and obviously Next
What's
Gen.
also so amazing about him is that he was totally original, but also did have touchstones to original series all the time. You know, like First Contact.
He kind of started that requirement of that trend in Star Trek theme music, right?
Yeah, like you had to know. Oh, that's Star Trek. I mean, even Discovery now is like it's totally new, but it's like it's still Star Trek music. How I don't know. There's some ineffable quality to it.
Well, and incorporating the Alexander Courage theme into
yeah.
So I have a pick, but I also have a guest submission.
Okay.
And this is the perfect time to bring it up.
All right, let's do it.
So, as I mentioned, Jonathan Frakes is one of my picks from Trek Mount Rushmore.
Yep.
And I went to Jonathan's table today, and I told him that we were recording Trek Ranks today, that we were doing Trek Mount Rushmore, and that he was one of my picks. And I said, you're one of my picks, who would be one of your picks? And I explained to him the premise, that it was creatives. I explained the 5 words and a hashtag, so I have Jonathan Frakes' submission.
Wow, this is
Trek Mount Rushmore.
So we have a Jonathan Frakes, 5 words and a hashtag. Let's hear it. That's amazing.
So his pick, tied in with Adams, is Jerry Goldsmith.
Fantastic.
And Jonathan Frakes' 5-word summary is, thinks in a way I can't, hashtag genius.
Oh, that's so good.
Wow.
That's amazing.
You have now had Jonathan Frakes has guested on your podcast.
Wow.
That is fantastic and cool. And yeah, the guy's a legend. I'm so glad somebody picked him because he's amazing. So then who's
okay, so my actual pick, my pick.
So your closeout, your number 5 face.
5 words, Ferengi, Cardassians, Bajorans, oh my, hashtag Oscar winner, it's Michael Westmore.
Yay!
Wow.
Yes!
I was hoping
somebody got Michael Westmore.
Yeah.
Pew, 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 pew! He's my number 5 pick as well. And my 5 words and a hashtag is Hollywood royalty dedicates life to Trek, hashtag forehead of the week, screw you, buddy. I hate when people say that. So tell us why you picked him.
I mean, so many of the races are either directly from his brain or the looks that we have come to consider that to be truly iconic in association with those races, like the Klingons, are right out of his playbook. I mean, you know, the Cardassians. So the episode I picked was Emissary.
Awesome. Is it because of the Cardassians?
Because it's the Cardassians, because it's got the Bajorans in it, which he created, because it's got the Ferengi. I mean, he tweaked them all, even if he didn't necessarily originally create them. You also had then the promenade full of aliens. And that first episode, I mean, you've got Morn, you've got Odo, you've got the Cardassians, you've got ones in the background. There's the guy playing the, like, weird
gloop, gloop.
Yeah,
that's what those are called.
Yeah, the track on the soundtrack is called Cucumbers in Space. Super weird, but and the alien is weird.
Bring that back. We're making
yeah, right. I mean, he just had to be on.
And I picked the Wounded because of the Cardassian makeup, because for me that's so defining. When he designed it for it's an alien. It wasn't a one-off alien, but it potentially was a one-off alien.
Right.
It wasn't. They weren't designed at that point to be the seminal alien of Deep Space Nine and Trek moving forward. And look at the Cardassians. I mean, this is such a home run, incredible design with the neck and everything. He had Oscar winner, Emmy winner. He was nominated every single year, 18 straight years that he worked on Star Trek, which is almost impossible.
Crazy.
To consider. So, yeah, and he basically designed every alien on TNG, Deep Space Nine, Voyager, and Enterprise. Guy's a legend. Absolute legend. Okay, so let's do any kind of quick secondary systems picks of anybody that hasn't been mentioned that you want to give a shout out to. Claire.
I mean, Mike Okuda has to come up.
He was on. He's my special shout out. Mike Okuda, just a legend.
I mean, even something as simple as him going through and putting little black lines all over the panels on the Enterprise D set, and all the that tiny little touch. Once you notice it, and the labels. Once you notice them and you're looking for them, you realize just how much dimension they add to the set and the props.
Ira Stephen Bear.
He was my toughest cut. Ira Stephen Bear, along with Goldsmith and Pillar. Those three guys I would love to get on there. But yeah, Ira Stephen Bear, legend, needs to be mentioned. Adam, anybody?
William Wertz.
Oh,
fantastic! And Robert Blackman too.
Robert Blackman, yes, those are two good ones. And I'm going to do one more special shout out to John Eves, who's a legend in terms of his ship designs and the things that he's done with Trek over the years.
And Gene Kuhn too. He's another name I would throw.
Yeah, we talked about him early. Gene Kuhn and Matt Jeffries, of course.
So it sounds to me like I came in midway, and I think it's fantastic that so much of what you've picked is, quote unquote, below the line. Cinematographers, production designers, composers.
Oh, we're going to recap our picks in a second if you want to save this comment, but go.
Well, maybe I do want to save it.
Yeah, that's the next thing we're going to do.
Okay. Recap, because I'm curious to see who I missed.
So we'll do a recap, and then actually let's do that. We'll do a recap, and then why don't you give us your kind of...
I'm going to rank your ranks?
Your overview. You rank the ranks.
And tell us who we missed.
Yeah, that's good. Okay.
All right.
Computer, activate regeneration cycle. Alcoves beta and gamma.
Okay, quick recap of our picks. Claire, run down your 5 faces on your Trek Mount Rushmore.
All right, I had Mark Okrand, creator of the Klingon language.
Oh.
DC Fontana, Michael Pillar, Jim Wolvington, and Jerry Finnerman.
Legends. Adam.
Rick Berman, Michael Pillar, Brannon Braga, Marvin Rush, Jerry Goldsmith.
3 showrunners. I love it. Great picks. Alex.
Jonathan Frakes, Rick Berman, the writing duo of Brannon Braga and Ronald Moore, Michael Westmore, and Jay Chataway.
6 picks in a 5-pick category. I love that. That is cheating that we love on TrekRanks.
The ampersand makes that one pick.
Yeah.
Yes, according to Writers Guild.
Yeah, exactly. Yep.
And my 5 were Dorothy D.C. Fontana, Herman Zimmerman, Brannon Braga, Dennis McCarthy, and Michael Westmore as well. So we had 2 Michael Westmore picks. We had 3 Brannon Braga. So Brannon Braga was a triplicate. I'm not keeping stats like I normally do. So we got
2 pillars.
I think we had 2 pillars. So
2
that's
Bermans.
We had 2 Bermans, and we had 3 composers, all different, and we had 2 cinematographers.
And 2 DC Fontanas.
And 2 DC Fontanas. So we had maybe 4 or 5 duplicates. So
I feel like I'm at like a deli. Give me 2 Bermans!
Hold the chat away.
Jordan, what's your take on those picks?
Well, everybody who chose DC Fontana is right.
Yes.
Yay.
Legendary figure, key personality in making the show work. I'm not seeing enough Bob Justman in this.
Yeah, he was we should have mentioned him in the freaking. We didn't.
Yeah.
Jerry Taylor.
Jerry
know.
Taylor
Just came to me.
There were so
It's
many
it's
to
hard to
choose
narrow
from.
down
What I
5.
also like is that you guys have been focusing more on producers and writers, which frankly is something I wish that creation at Star Trek Las Vegas would focus on a little
Same.
more. Why are there so few writers here?
Yeah.
Robert Hewitt Wolf is another writer that I
Great.
absolutely
Oh,
adore.
love him.
But what's interesting is that, with the exception of Frakes, who also was a director, you guys didn't talk too much about actors and actresses.
We weren't allowed to.
No,
I mean, that
we
was
didn't.
part of the.
We've tried to
topic.
keep it all
Oh.
creatives.
But in a way, that's cool, because those guys get enough attention. We love them.
Exactly. That was kind
But
of.
they just kind of say the lines and make the faces. Let's be honest. But if I were to pick 5, and I don't know who my 5 would be, and if I were to pick an actor, I would put DeForest Kelley in there somewhere.
Oh, he's
my favorite of all Star Trek characters at the end of the day, who brings so much to the show. And that would be my sort of wild card pick at the end. The other 5, I really don't know. DC Fontana, probably the sound design guy from original series, who just died, by the way.
I know. I saw that like 4 days ago.
I kind of forget his name.
I saw that.
Wait, hold on. Well, it doesn't. I mean, he's a wonderful man whose name is escaping me right now. And
I'm going to drop him in at the end of the show, everybody. So listen through the credits. We're going to give him the special tribute.
Yeah, he just passed away. He's a legend. But, you know, they're all great. Brandon Bragg. I mean, how do you choose between Brandon Bragg and Rondi Moore? And
I had that problem. That's why I picked both of them.
Yeah.
All right. So,
but listen, guys, Stuart Baird. All right. I mean, the guy.
If you had anyone direct that movie and have Baird edit it, it would be dope. He's legitimately a great editor.
Correct.
And if you put that editorial skill in mind,
in
a purely mercenary fashion, here's what makes this movie tick, great. You don't put him in charge of making decisions that affect 18 years of continuity.
It's very rare that an editor becomes a director. There are some examples of good ones. I can't.
Hal Ashby.
There you go. Throws it in the house.
What?
There are always a few, but writer to director, cinematographer to director is more common. Even
producer
director. In the old days, radio dramaturg to director. Lots of things. Actor to director, actress to director. But rarely is it editor, and it's because it's two different skill sets. It really is. So Stuart Baird. He should come to a TrekCon.
He is...
and do the shame walk from Game of Thrones. You know? He can start him
shame. It would be bad. It would be bad.
You're more likely to get Tom Hardy, which was never going to happen.
It would be bad. All right, let's...
For listeners, the look on Claire's face when it was mentioned the possibility of Tom Hardy coming to the convention.
I wonder if Tom Hardy would ever want to come by. I mean,
you know what? He went to Comic-Con, although he was probably contractually obliged to because of Venom.
Correct.
But he seemed to be okay with interacting with the
guy
fans.
does a lot of weird stuff. Maybe
he seems like a real weirdo himself.
Yeah.
He probably would enjoy coming to one of these.
Venom trailer is insane.
Yes, it is.
I can't wait to see that train wreck. It looks nuts.
I'm going to reserve comment on Venom because it just looks...
From the director of 30 Minutes or Less.
All right. Awesome conversation. Crazy Trek Ranks Live Table. We're going to wind it up with another entry into our temporal causality loop.
The Enterprise has been caught up in a temporal causality loop, and I suspect that something similar may have happened to you.
Okay, so for this week's temporal causality loop, we're actually in a temporal causality loop because we're taking a little break from the craziness of our live recording. Don't worry, we're going to go back to it and finish it off, and trust me, you don't want to miss the end of this thing because it is crazy. All right, but first, let's jump into a quick temporal causality loop flashback to our top 5 Kira Nerys episodes. We got a voicemail. It came in from Rob Chapman, who is just a great dude. He's on Twitter at TrekkieRob. You should definitely follow him there. Great Star Trek musings. Also, you should follow his at Trek Book Club, which is the book club he started on Twitter, and it's really fantastic in terms of the interaction that happens there. So follow Rob Chapman. Great dude. Here is his voicemail with his top 5 Kira Nerys picks, and it is awesome.
Hi Jim, hi everyone. It's Rob Chapman here, at TrekkieRob on Twitter. A fantastic edition of Trek Ranks with the top 5 Kira episodes. Absolutely loved it as always. So I thought I'd give it a go. So here are my top 5 Kira episodes. My number 5 pick, my 5 words are, don't mess with Kira Nerys. # remind me never to play poker with you. It's the episode Shadows and Symbols, where Kira faces off against a fleet of Romulan warbirds. My number 4 pick, my 5 words are Kira Nerys versus the Kai. # she wants a fight, I'll give her one. It's the episode Shakar, where Kira helps her old resistance cell when Kyrene tries to take their soil reclamations away from them. My number 3 pick, it is cheating a bit, I know, but my 5 words are Kira, the saviour of Cardassia. # For Cardassia! It's the Cardassian Resistance arc, as there are so many great Kira moments during the Cardassian Resistance, so I couldn't just pick one episode. My number 2 pick, I'm going to do my hashtag first for this one. Hashtag enough good people have already died, and my 5 words are, I won't help kill another. It's the episode Duet, where Kira deals with who she thinks is the Butcher of Galatep, Goldar Heel, and it's one hell of a powerful episode, in part because of Ninar Visitor's amazing performance. My number 1 Kira Nerys episode, my 5 words are, the birth of the Resistance, hashtag evil must be opposed. It's the episode Rocks and Shoals, where Kira is spurred into action and to begin resisting the Dominion occupation of DS9 by the tragic actions of a Vedic. And I just want to say again, huge thanks to Jim for producing such a fantastic podcast for us all to enjoy, and to the whole Tricorder Transmissions team. Your podcasts always brighten up my day. Keep doing what you're doing, and live long and prosper.
All right, so that was Rob's voicemail. And before we wrap up the show, as promised from our earlier conversation, and since we're doing Trek Mount Rushmore, I want to highlight Douglas Grindstaff. He is the Emmy Award-winning sound editor who was so crucial in developing all those amazing whistles and beeps and bumps on Star Trek, the original series, who we talked about earlier. He died about a month ago at age 87, and what a legend. I mean, the guy started it all. So let's give him his due respect. Again, Douglas Grindstaff. He also worked on Mission Impossible and Max Headroom, which is an amazing show for sound, and Dallas. Wow, in the 80s. Cool. Okay, let's jump back to Las Vegas. Temporal causality loop. So at the start of the show this week, we just jumped right in and didn't do any of our contact info. So before we wrap it up here, I just want to offer a huge thanks to Claire Little, Adam Drozen, and Alexander Perry for coming on the show and imparting their awesome Trek knowledge on us. So thanks, guys. Why don't you tell everybody how they can get a hold of you? Claire.
I am on Twitter. I'm Isolinear Chick.
Best handle ever.
Twitter, Instagram, Adam Drosen. Just remember, you can't spell Drosen without sin.
How am I supposed to follow that? I'm on Twitter, at Alexander T. Perry.
Alexander T. Perry.
Because the English drink tea.
Yeah, that's right. I like that. That works.
It's confirmed.
All right, we're winding this thing down. Thanks for engaging with us here on episode 36 of the TrekRanks podcast. As always, I want to close by saying I'm looking forward to standing with you again here in this place where I belong. That's a famous Ben Sisko quote.
Can you keep that whispering part in?
Jordan's never heard that before.
Here comes the guitar.
Leave it in, right? Yes.
Oh yeah, for sure, we're keeping that.
That's a convention exclusive right there.
Yes.
Jim, you're gonna have fun editing this.
There's not gonna be much to edit. It's only one track, so this thing better have worked.